Hello and welcome to the Art of Abundance podcast. I'm your host, Leisa Peterson, and today you are going to have a lot of fun with this conversation because we had a lot of fun making it. I've invited my friends Deanna Lyons and Sandra Rolus to partake in a conversation about sex, money, and love. The reason we're talking about this is we're going to be hosting a retreat in Reno, Nevada, March 16th, 17th, and 18th. And as we start to plan and feel into the vibe of what we are wanting to create for those who decide to attend this retreat, this was a perfect opportunity to bring them on the podcast, give you a feeling of what's on our minds when it comes to these very important parts of our lives as human beings. I think that you are going to walk away with a new perspective. Hopefully want to join us in Reno, Nevada. Nonetheless, I think sex, money, love, near and dear to my heart. And I'm just really excited for you to hear what we talk about. The retreat is set up for both men and women. And we're hoping that it really starts a beautiful conversation about what our potential is as we drop away the stories of who we are not and step into our vibrant, joyful, abundant selves going forth. Enjoy. We're coming together for this podcast today to not hold back, to give you the vibe of something that's happening inside of the three of us that we want to share with the rest of the world. And a few lucky individuals are going to come join us to have a deeper conversation than the one that we're going to start today. So that's the preface. Today I am joined by my good friend, client, my colleague, Deanna Lyons, who's based in Reno, Nevada, and Sandra Rolus, who's my compatriot here in Sedona, my sex goddess that I enjoy talking about these things with. And here we are talking about sex, love, and money. I have always played with the idea that someday I'll just be a sex and money coach because I feel like what I do is so tightly intertwined with sexuality. The more I step into it, the more I allow myself to speak to it. And really what we're creating together here is a reflection of all three of us giving ourselves permission to have this conversations. I would love it if you could talk about how this all came together just at a high level so people could get inside your head and understand, what were you thinking when you said, hey, Sandra and Leisa, let's do something together?
What I was thinking is last summer, I came to one of your retreats, Leisa, in Sedona, and you brought Sandra in to participate and also to offer some of her work with us. And it just was like nothing else I had done before. Sandra brought to your work this additional piece around our root and sacral chakras, that very base of our energy. And it's even difficult to really describe because I've done a lot of great work over the years, and this was different. And it went deep, and it was quick, efficient, and in such a way that it reminded me of, I have this feeling, and back in high school, when you used to get like maybe something really special, maybe you got a great joint, or you had there was a cool party to go to and you wanted to share it with your friends. Well, that's what this felt like to me, because I've been enjoying and benefiting from the work that you do, Leisa, that it combines both the practical with our money, but it also speaks to our spiritual side. And so you're doing such a beautiful job connecting all of that. And then you bring in this powerhouse of Sandra with her beautiful, important work, something that I want to share with everybody, and particularly my friends here in Reno.
And there's also some personal stuff, right? Like, why is it important to you?
A lot of these things we want to work on, and we do, and we dance around. And I've done a lot of dancing around sex and money in my life. I'm a big love bug. People that know me, I'm centered from the heart. It's just how I came into this planet. But it's time. I I want to live a full life's expression. And that has been something I've put on the back burner, raising my daughter and dealing with, my career choices and all the different things that have gone on. And somehow, I've made great money and I've saved, but there's still some issues around all of those things. And I'm uncovering those, and I'm standing in my own truth. And how that's been happening is through this work, the gift of this work. Same thing with my creative energy. We talk about sex, but it's actually that sexual energy is our creative energy. So there's a lot that goes along with all of this. While we all want great sex, I mean, who doesn't? There's also this big piece of the creativity that comes along with opening up those energies and being able to step into those fully. And last but not least, right here, right now, just as I am, just as we are, perfectly imperfect. And we get to have this too. And that's why I can feel that energy building in me. I'm not there yet, and it'll be an ever-evolving process anyway, right? But the truth is, I can feel it, and it's growing in me. And so, yeah, I just said, I had this wild idea, and I asked both of you, and you accepted, and I'm so excited, and I can't wait for it to happen.
So, Sandra, sex. How are you so comfortable talking about sex? That's where I want to start.
Okay, so it's been an amazing journey for myself because I had to do a lot of personal work to get to this point. And just like Deanna was saying, my personal work was mainly focused on the higher chakras and opening up the heart, because there was so much contraction in those higher chakras, even the solar plexus, the heart. And at a certain point, I felt like I'm tripping up over and over again. Something is not working. I can't sustain it. It's like it's always out of my reach. And I noticed that it was all about the lower chakras, the root chakra. So I started diving into my shadows, doing my lower chakra work. And it was almost like I unclogged the whole system, and everything started flowing. And it's not as if all the work that I had done on the higher chakras was in vain. On the contrary, I was prepping myself. But at a certain point, you can only go so far if you do not address those shadows, if you do not address the lower chakras, and especially the root chakra, where we are connected to the earth, where we are getting that energy. If we want all the chakras to flow, we need to address that root chakra and then the sacral chakra. And especially as women, in our womb, we hold so much trauma, so much memory, and it's just hindering us. It's blocking us from living our highest excitement. And why I'm so drawn to you, Leisa, because you work on the money part, because it's interlinked. It's so connected. The sex and the money part is so connected. And in my own life, I came from this complete contraction in the sexual department, let's say, but I also had a lot of money issues going on. So then unblocking that whole sexual creative energy, I felt like, oh, wow, the abundance is flowing in my life. But then at a certain point between me and my partner, there was this money issue that was coming up. And all of a sudden, I felt that contraction in the sex department again. So I'm like, whoa, I've done so much work. I've opened it up. But it's interlinked. We have to look at both of those aspects. So that's why it's so fascinating to me to work on sex and money, because they are tied closely together. And that's where I think you and I are such a good team with sex and money. And I'm so excited that Deanna's inviting us to come to Reno to do this work together, because Deanna has her own beautiful practices and the way that she works with people. So it's going to be this tripod, this trinity of energy. And I'm so excited. It's going to be awesome.
I love it. Well, I have to share, Sandra's been on the podcast, so you can see us talk about sex and money. It was super fun. We met at the Sedona Yoga Festival where she was giving not just a talk, but like the most intense experience that you could imagine with no preparatory work beforehand. So I walked into the class. Sandra is very serious. She was like, this is what you have to do. And she got the group of like 45 people to go super deep in a matter of minutes, which was mind-blowing to me. And I thought, a woman who could just stand there and feel so comfortable talking about the womb and all these lower body parts, I was like, what is going on? And so immediately I was drawn to her. We made the connection that we both lived in Sedona, and a fast friendship was born. And like Deanna said, when I was having this retreat in June, she came. But I think even from that first experience of working with you that day at the festival, things started, it's like balls started to go into motion in my life about the releases that I was meant to have last year in the lower chakras so that I could step into the work that I do in a bigger way and help more people. So you began that then. You helped us again in June. I had several life-changing breakthroughs that I've shared in the past. I don't think on the podcast before, but in the shedding of all of this, I'm going to call it baggage because that's the word, but all the stuff of the sexual abuse, and when I use that word, I say like, I include a big volume of past experiences, not like really, really bad stuff, but just enough for me to have noticed it and had all these stories of things of who I was and how I was to show up and what it meant to be feminine and what it meant to be a sexual being, had to drop away so that I could become more of my true self. And as that started to shed, I began to have premonitions of what was going to become, this whole new world that we're living in right now. Last summer, when the whole Harvey Weinstein thing blew up and all this stuff started to come out about these shadows that we've all been living behind, stuffing down and trying to resist and not look at and hope that they'll go away and then we'll feel better, that was no longer acceptable. It was time to be free from those shackles so that we could just not have to have all the answers, but to just be able to see ourselves, like Deanna said, as we are, without judgment about our sexuality. And so as I got those premonitions, I realized just how much, like Sandra said, this is a part of the work that I do. And I needed to clear it out to be able to hold the space for other people to do the same. When we do this, we are not just having, like we've been talking about, a better sex life, but we're also having a better money life. And the idea that you could be doing one practice and have both of those things improve, like, dang, that's pretty good. Like, I don't really think that people will understand how big of a deal this is until they're sitting in the room with us, having this conversation and doing some of this work. Because it's indescribable what the potential is. Even a little teeny breakthrough can change and rewire the whole way that you've seen your life and the choices and the decisions that you will make going forward. So I'm going to open that up because I can see your heads, shaking.
Yes, it's when you talk about all of that, the energy of safety and security comes up, and I think it's interlinked again. So if you feel sexually unsafe, that can reflect into your money story, but also vice versa. If you feel that you're not secure and you always need to struggle, that's going to have an effect on your sex life. And when you talked about sexual abuse, it can just mean that you felt unsafe to be a woman in this world. Maybe growing up as a young girl and starting to develop, and then you start getting these looks and these remarks, and it can feel very unsafe out there in the world. And that can cause contraction as well. That has effect on your sexuality, your femininity, but also on your money story.
Mm.
Yeah, I was just going to say that that's been one of the themes throughout my life, is that, what did I have to cry about? I really had a lot of wonderful things and family and experiences in my life, but there was just a part of me that cried a lot. And in particular around the sexual abuse and those sorts of things, I had just some, I don't want to make them insignificant, because they weren't. There were things that happened that just were not right. And that also, as you said, growing into who I am voluptuous. Other people, especially in today's media saturated, there's this Barbie image and these other things, and I was never going to be that. So all of those things came into play, and you both talked about it, where you stuff it down and you stuff it down, you resist it and push it down and push it down, and it gets pushed down so far that you don't even realize it's affecting you in more ways than one. Mm. And the other thing that you said is even the smallest breakthrough, and I would say that I've had many of those, and I've had big breakthroughs throughout my introspective journey doing this work. And it really can be those little things that create this domino effect of me sitting here with the two of you on a podcast. Because if you would have asked me 3 years ago, would I be doing this? The answer would have been, you're crazy. No way.
One of the things I want to touch on, we started out, Sandra, you're having premonition dreams, and you're talking about compartmentalization. That's what I'm taking from your dream. Yes. This fact that we compartmentalize. And a lot of my work around the chakras is about noticing how you've compartmentalized your life around security, around feeling worthy, around power, around your heart. Like they're not in flow. And so I'm curious to hear you talk perhaps about the compartmentalization, how can I say this, the habitual state versus what causes us to get into flow with our sexual being.
It comes from childhood, how we've been raised. So all my sexual issues came from childhood trauma. And I'm not saying that it's that the sexual abuse was necessarily in the early stages of childhood, but I was so not invited to show up authentically when I was a child, because my caretakers, my grandparents, my parents, they didn't know how to deal with somebody showing up authentically. So they're a product of their upbringing, and they did it as best as they could, but it inflicted some childhood trauma where I was not able to voice who I was. There was no room for 100% self-expression, because that was really not allowed. That was actually punished. But that primed me for becoming very vulnerable for a sexual predator, because I didn't know how to voice, how to say what I really wanted. It wasn't allowed. So when that time came, when there was this sexual unsafety, I went into the freeze. So you have the flight, fight, or freeze mode. And I went into this complete paralyzed state. And I carried that with me throughout my whole teenage life and young adulthood. And it took me up until my late 30s before I was able to get rid of that contraction. Because that's what I'm feeling, is that a lot of people, when they compartmentalize, they have contraction in all of the chakras. But it all comes from that root chakra, from that safety, that security. And what we do to numb the pain is we shop, we drink, we may do recreational drugs. I never did it, because on an intuitive level, I felt if I start drinking and doing drugs, this is going to end badly. So intuitively, I felt I had to stay away from that. But I had my other numbing devices like shopping and getting into meaningless relationships. So it's a vicious cycle that you get yourself into. And back in the day, I didn't have any tools. I didn't have any knowledge. I'm just like, walking around in blind in the dark, no navigation tools. So that's why I'm so passionate to share this with other women
and men,
because it's been like a life-changing experience for me. And like Deanna was saying, and you were saying, Leisa, in one session, you can shift to being a new being. You can become a new version of yourself. You can shift to another timeline where all of a sudden the future looks bright, and you can work on that sexual energy and call in that feminine power, that creative energy.
When you think about this weekend, because I think all of us are at a level of maturity with our teachings that we know that the magic is going to happen in the room. We can have intention. We can have ideas of what's going to happen, but it is really not going to happen until the people are in that space that we're co-creating it together. That said, Sandra, when you think about what would you love to have somebody feeling on Sunday, at 1:00, we're giving each other hugs and departing from this 2.5 day experience. What would you like for people to be feeling?
What I've seen happen, and that's so beautiful, is that they make the shift and they're an entirely new being. It's as if that the person that came into that workshop or that retreat is nothing like the person that leaves. It's a whole new version. And I think it's their more authentic version. Because all of the contraction, compartmentalization, all the shields, all the armor that we build around ourselves, because it's freaking painful. It's challenging to look at the shadows. But once you're able to let go of it, you're just like a whole new being. And that's why I want to be this one-stop practitioner. Yeah, come to this session and you'll be a completely different being when you leave. And I believe that. And I think that's something that the three of us can do. We can hold that frequency, healed, new version. The bigger the difference before and after will be. But we will be holding that frequency because with every fiber in my being, I believe that you can shift in one weekend.
Mm-hmm. And let's talk about beginners. Like a lot of times people feel like they're beginners, no matter what age they are, no matter maybe even how much work they've done. There's always this feeling of like, am I going to be able to handle this conversation? Like, can I be brand new to this work and step into it with all of you and not feel uncomfortable?
I think it's for all levels. And
well, take, for example, the Sedona Yoga Festival. People had never met you before. Nothing.
No backstory. They didn't know who I was. They were just attracted to the title of my session. So
what was that?
It was soul rebirthing. So this was more of a rebirthing session. We had men and women in the group. And I thought it was beautiful because there was nobody in that room that knew me. Wow. And that was exciting to me. And I didn't have any time to do a lot of explaining because I was on this tight schedule because she only gave me a slot of an hour and a half. So we just had to dive in deep immediately and they all did it. And that's something that I feel is one of my gifts, is I'm able to hold that space for people.
Mm-hmm. And I think that speaks to when someone just has the calling, you don't have to know the how. So much we want to have everything outlined in nice, neat boxes and figure it out before we get to the end game. And it just really doesn't work that way in so many different ways. And so if you have that spark, that knowing, there's a deep calling inside you that it can be different. You don't exactly know how to get there, but this conversation resonates, then trust yourself take that leap, because that's what I did. And I didn't know that's what I was doing when I did it years ago and I started moving down this journey. But it was knowing that I couldn't live like I was living before, that I wanted and deserved better. And I just didn't exactly know how to get there, but I was willing, I was committed, and I was prepared to do things I hadn't done before and just be open and available to try something new.
I'm going to put you on the spot because, I'm good for that, Deanna. This topic is not an easy one to necessarily bring up, or talk about. The question I have for you is, why is it imperative that we have that conversation?
Without it, you've left a big part of you at the shore or out to drift, or whichever way, your mind works in this. But you're missing out on the totality of what this life can offer. You'll gain new tools and new insights to navigate your journey in a new way that you hadn't been able to do before.
Let me make it more specific. Okay, let's talk about what's going on in the world for a second. And I want you to answer maybe that question, why does it matter now?
A friend of mine that I was talking to said that she went to a meeting and it was like a high school or junior high dance where all the guys were on one side and all the girls were on the other, because now with some of the allegations and things that have come out, the men are afraid to talk to the women, and the women are feeling empowered and emboldened in a way that they hadn't before. And the truth is that we're all in this together. And if we can be honest and uncover these things that have been blocking us, and men have them too, there's all sorts of things that have transpired. And now it's time for honest conversation amongst each other, and it starts from within. When you can have the honest conversation from within, then you can also bring it out into the world.
And we were really particular when we started putting this together. I work with a lot of men. I was pretty pro having men come because I see the challenges. I've been married to one for too long to count. Like 31 years together by the time we're having this retreat. So I want this experience to be shared with our partners, with our community, and this involvement of men, whether it makes somebody uncomfortable or not, doesn't really matter to me, quite frankly, because it's so important. And I know, Sandra, you have some thoughts about this too.
We as women have such an important task. It's to bring back balance between feminine and masculine. Because it's not about it's us against the men and women's empowerment. No, it's coming together, joining up, teaming up. And I feel from my own personal experience that if you get your shit together, if you really learn how to balance the energy within yourself, you're more able to show up authentically in your relationship. And most men, they don't know how to handle a woman that's flying off the handle and that's completely chaotic and has anxiety and depression. They don't know how to handle that. So if you as a woman can own that power, but in a very balanced way, it will improve all of your relationship, and especially with the intimate partners that you are going to attract, because they're going to be attracted to this balanced energy, and it's going to offer them the opportunity to find that balance within themselves. If a man is not able to handle that, he will leave and somebody else will come and take his place. But I think we have this great power within us, not to be more than a man, no, to find that balance, that equality, and to bring our femininity more into the picture, because we've been trained as single moms and hardworking women to bring out that masculine side, to get things done, to have that forceful, controlling energy into our lives. And I think it's time to move away from that and step more into that feminine, creative power, and let a man be a man. We're demasculating men, and that's not what we're here to do. We're here to give the men the opportunity to show what they can do, how they can hold space for women, and how we can hold space for our men.
Wow.
And that is brothers, sons, our intimate partners, our fathers. It's for the collective. So everything that you do on an individual level to bring balance between feminine and masculine energy is going to reflect in the collective, in your immediate family, in your community. So it's very profound work that you're doing.
So let's just talk about details, because we're gonna wrap things up. We've got this retreat. Deanna, you want to tell everybody just the details? So even if they're listening in the future, they can reach out to any of us, because this may be the first of many. This may be a solo enterprise, but this podcast will be played for years to come. And I want to encourage people to reach out and learn more. But the details for right now are March in Reno, Nevada.
Yeah, March 16th to the 18th in Reno, Nevada. And we'll be beginning on Friday at 9 a.m. We'll go till 5 p.m. both Friday and Saturday. And then Sunday will be from 9 to 1. We'll be at the River School Farm right on the Truckee River, just on the outskirts of Reno.
Beautiful. And in the show notes, I'll make sure and give information about both of you and how to reach out and connect with you. But we're hoping that this inspires some people to come be a part of this conversation, because it's not happening anywhere but here and there for right now. But we know that we're going to be talking about some breakthrough topics. We're going to be taking you through practices that we've been developing, each of us, for many years, that all integrate together to give you this experience so that you can walk away a better person in whatever way that means to you. You're perfect naturally. We're just trying to help you bring that out in a beautiful, loving, supportive way. So we hope you join us. I'm so happy that the two of you could join me. This has been a super fun conversation. Thank you for being here.
No, thank you for hosting us, Leisa. Thanks.
Thank you for listening to the Art of Abundance podcast. For more life-changing results to heal your money story, go to wealthclinic.com. On my homepage, you'll find a wealth flower assessment that you can download and get access to a tool that helps you create more wealth in your life. I recently met Damon John from the Shark Tank. He told me that he actually practices something quite similar to this process every single morning. Check it out. Namaste.